The stars looked different through the viewing screen of the Carthan flagship. Supreme Commander Vecthara stood with his 4 arms crossed behind his back, watching the blue planet grow larger. Earth. Such a small, insignificant world. Yet it had refused to bow to the Carthan Empire. His tactical officer approached with careful steps. The young warrior's scales were still bright green, not yet dulled by years of service. "Commander, we are entering their solar system. The fleet is ready for battle formation." Vecthara made a dismissive gesture with his lower right arm. "Battle formation? Against these primitives? They still use chemical rockets. Their fastest ships cannot even reach their own outer planets in reasonable time. This will not be a battle. It will be an execution." Behind him, 3,000 warships moved through space in perfect formation. Each vessel carried enough firepower to level a continent. Each captain commanded crews that had conquered dozens of worlds. The Carthan Empire had ruled the galaxy for 5,000 years. No one refused them. No one survived refusing them. On Earth, Lieutenant Kyle Morrison sat in his chair at Orbital Defense Station Sentinel-7. The station floated in high orbit, officially listed as a communications relay. Kyle knew better. He had known better for 3 years since his assignment here. His fingers moved across the controls, watching the red dots appear on his screen. "Captain Rodriguez, they are here," he said quietly. Captain Amy Rodriguez stood behind him, her hands resting on the back of his chair. She was 42 years old and had spent half her life preparing for this moment, hoping it would never come, knowing it probably would. "How many?" she asked. "Computer counts 3,012 vessels. They are in standard conquest formation." Kyle looked up at her. "Captain, they think we are helpless." Amy smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Let them think that a little longer. Open a channel." The viewing screen flickered. Supreme Commander Vecthara appeared, his reptilian face filling the display. He spoke in the trade language that most spacefaring species used. His translator made his voice sound mechanical and cold. "Humans of Earth, I am Supreme Commander Vecthara of the Carthan Imperial Armada. Your world has been selected for integration into the Empire. You will surrender all weapons. You will accept Carthan governors. You will provide tribute and soldiers for Imperial service. You have 1 of your hours to comply. Refuse, and your cities will burn." Amy stepped forward so the alien commander could see her clearly. She wore a simple blue uniform with silver insignia. No medals, no decorations. Just the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly what was about to happen. "Commander Vecthara, I am Captain Amy Rodriguez of Earth Defense Command. I have reviewed your demands." She paused. "No." Vecthara's eyes widened slightly. His translator took a moment to process the simple word. "You refuse?" "We refuse," Amy confirmed. "Leave our system now. Do not return. This is your only warning." The alien commander's laugh was a harsh, clicking sound. "Your only warning, human. I have 3,000 warships." "What do you have? Satellites? Missiles that cannot even reach orbit without assistance? You dare threaten the Carthan Empire?" "I dare," Amy said simply. She closed the channel. Kyle watched his captain walk back to her command station. His hands were shaking slightly. "Captain, are we really doing this?" "We are really doing this," Amy confirmed. She pressed a series of buttons on her console. "Authorization Rodriguez 77 Alpha. Activate solar defense grid. All stations, all platforms, all protocols. Active status now." Across the solar system, things began to wake up. Supreme Commander Vecthara watched his sensor screens with growing confusion. Energy readings were spiking everywhere. The asteroids his ships had passed were lighting up with power signatures. The space debris floating throughout the system was moving, changing, transforming. "Commander!" his tactical officer shouted. "The asteroids are not asteroids. They are defense platforms, thousands of them." "Impossible," Vecthara said, but his screens did not lie. What the Carthans had thought were rocks were actually camouflaged weapons. What they had mistaken for frozen comets were massive railguns. What they had dismissed as ancient satellites were quantum disruption mines. The entire solar system had been turned into a weapon, and the Carthans had flown right into the middle of it. "Evasive maneuvers," Vecthara ordered. "All ships, scatter formation, return fire." But humanity had been preparing for this moment for 40 years. Every weapon system had been tested 1,000 times. Every targeting computer knew exactly where to shoot. Every platform had been built with one purpose: to make sure no hostile force ever threatened Earth again. The first railgun fired from the moon. A chunk of metal the size of a bus accelerated to 3,000 kilometers per second. It hit a Carthan heavy cruiser dead center. The ship simply ceased to exist, torn into atoms by the kinetic impact. Then all the other weapons fired. Space lit up like a new sun. Directed energy beams cut through Carthan shields like they were not even there. Railgun projectiles, moving at relativistic speeds, punched through multiple ships at once. Quantum mines detonated, tearing apart the molecular structure of everything within a kilometer. Kyle watched his screens in silence as the red dots began disappearing. One by one, then in groups, then in hundreds. The Carthan fleet was dying, and it had barely fired a shot. "Time elapsed since activation?" Amy asked quietly. 28 seconds, Captain," Kyle replied. On the Carthan flagship, alarms screamed. Hull breaches were reported from every section. Half the fleet was already gone. Vecthara stared at his screens in shock, unable to process what was happening. This was impossible. Humans were primitive. Humans were weak. Humans were supposed to die screaming. He tried to open a communication channel to the Empire, to warn them, to tell them what these creatures really were. "Do not come to this system," he managed to broadcast. "They are not what we thought. They are—" A railgun round traveling at 0.3% light speed hit the flagship's command section. Supreme Commander Vecthara and everyone on his bridge died instantly, their bodies vaporized by the impact. 30 seconds after humanity activated its defenses, the Carthan Imperial Armada was destroyed. 3,000 ships reduced to debris and radiation. Not one had made it past Mars. Not one had fired a shot that hit anything important. Kyle Morrison sat back in his chair, his hands still shaking. Amy Rodriguez stood at her station, watching the last few red dots vanish from the screens. "Log it," she said quietly. "First Battle of Sol, duration 30 seconds, enemy casualties total, friendly casualties none, status of Earth, defended." She looked out the window at the planet below, beautiful and blue and safe. For now, Dr. Lisa Chen stood in the observation room of Lunar Base Armstrong, watching the debris field where the Carthan fleet had been. She held a cup of coffee in her hands, still warm from the cafeteria. The battle had happened 3 hours ago. She was still trying to process it. 30 seconds, she said to herself. All those years of work, and it was over in 30 seconds. Behind her, the door opened. Director Greg Foster walked in, carrying a tablet. He was the head of the Lunar Weapons Research Facility, and technically her boss. He was also her oldest friend. "Drinking coffee at 2 in the morning again?" he asked. "Can't sleep," Lisa admitted. "Greg, did we just win a war or did we just start one?" Greg sat down in the chair next to her. Outside the window, Earth hung in the black sky like a blue jewel. Beautiful, fragile, worth protecting at any cost. "I don't know," he said honestly. "The Carthan Empire controls 400 star systems. They have billions of soldiers. We just destroyed their invasion fleet without breaking a sweat. How do you think they are going to react?" Lisa had been thinking about that question since the battle ended. "They are going to come back, bigger, angrier, probably a lot more careful. That's what the president thinks too, Greg confirmed. She's calling an emergency session of the United Earth Assembly. Every nation, every leader. We need to decide what happens next. Lisa took a sip of her coffee. It was bitter, but it helped her think. Tell me something, Greg. Did we do the right thing? Building all this? Turning our entire solar system into a weapon? Greg was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked to the window. He pointed down at Earth. 43 years ago, we detected the Carthan Empire's expansion. We watched them conquer the Talari homeworld. The Talari were peaceful. They had art and music and philosophy. The Carthans killed 90% of their population and enslaved the rest. We watched it happen, and we couldn't do anything about it because we were barely reaching our own moon. He turned to look at Lisa. We had a choice. We could hope the Carthans never noticed us, or we could prepare. Every nation on Earth agreed. For the first time in human history, we were united, not by peace, but by fear. Fear of extinction. Lisa nodded slowly. She had been part of it from the beginning. Fresh out of university, recruited into a project that officially did not exist. She had spent 20 years of her life designing weapons. Weapons that could kill from millions of kilometers away. Weapons that made nuclear bombs look like firecrackers. The railgun satellites were my design, she said quietly. Every one of them. I calculated the velocities. I ran the simulations. I figured out how to make them invisible to sensors. And today they killed thousands of living beings. Living beings who came here to enslave us, Greg reminded her. Lisa, I know this is hard, but we did what we had to do, and we are going to have to do more. On Earth, President Kate Sullivan stood in the assembly hall of the United Earth Government. Representatives from every nation sat in curved rows before her. The room was designed to hold 2,000 people. Tonight, every seat was filled. She waited for silence before she spoke. 3 hours ago, the Carthan Empire sent 3,000 warships to conquer our world. 3 hours ago, we destroyed them. Completely, totally, none survived. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some people cheered. Others sat in shocked silence. Kate raised her hand for quiet. But this is not a victory. This is a warning. The Carthan Empire is vast. They control hundreds of worlds. They have resources we cannot match. And now we have humiliated them. They will come back. Then we'll destroy them again, someone shouted from the back. Kate shook her head. Our defense grid is powerful, but it requires time to recharge. The energy output of today's battle was equivalent to all of Earth's power consumption for an entire year. We cannot sustain that rate of fire indefinitely. If they come with 10,000 ships, 20,000, we might not be able to stop them all. The room fell silent. People were starting to understand. So what do we do? Asked Ambassador Carlos Martinez from the South American Union. Do we surrender? Do we run? We adapt, Kate said firmly. We have an advantage the Carthans do not expect. Our technology is better than theirs. Much better. We analyze the debris from their ships. Their fastest-than-light drives are crude. Their weapons are powerful but inefficient. Their computers are centuries behind ours. They have been the dominant power for so long that they stopped innovating. She pulled up a holographic display. It showed star charts, trade routes, military installations. We captured all of this data from their flagship's computers before it was destroyed. We know where they live. We know their military deployments. We know their weaknesses. You are talking about attacking them, said Prime Minister Helen Scott from the European Federation. Taking the war to their territory. I am talking about making sure they never attack us again, Kate corrected. We have two options. We can sit here and wait for them to come back with overwhelming force, or we can show them that humanity is not prey. We are predators, and we bite back. On Mars, Engineer Ben Parker walked through the underground facility that housed the planetary defense grid. Mars had been humanity's first colony, but it was never meant to be just a colony. It was a fortress. The entire planet had been weaponized. His assistant, a young woman named Sophie Grant, followed him with a tablet. The defense grid performed exactly as predicted, she reported. All 742 platforms activated on schedule. Power consumption was within acceptable parameters. No malfunctions. Good, Ben said, but he did not sound happy. Sophie looked at him curiously. Sir, we won. Why do you seem worried? Ben stopped walking and turned to face her. Sophie, we won today because the Carthans underestimated us. They thought we were primitive. They flew right into our trap, but they won't make that mistake twice. Next time, they'll be careful. They'll send scouts. They'll probe our defenses. They'll look for weaknesses. Do we have weaknesses? Sophie asked. Everyone has weaknesses, Ben said. The question is whether we can fix ours before they find them. He pulled up a holographic display showing the solar system. Red lines marked the Carthan fleet's approach vector. Blue dots showed humanity's defensive positions. Look at this, he said. We have amazing defenses around Earth, the Moon, Mars, but the outer solar system, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, we have almost nothing out there. If the Carthans attack from multiple vectors, if they split their fleet, we might not be able to cover everything. Sophie's eyes widened. You think they will try to go around us? I think they are going to study what happened today very carefully, Ben said, and they are going to come up with a plan that accounts for our defenses. We need to be ready for that. Back on Sentinel-7, Kyle Morrison sat in the cafeteria with Captain Rodriguez. The station had returned to normal operations, but nothing felt normal. The victory felt hollow somehow. Captain, can I ask you something? Kyle said. Amy looked up from her meal. Go ahead. How long have we been ready for this? Really ready? Amy considered the question. The defense grid has been operational for 12 years, but we started building it 40 years ago. My father worked on the first railgun prototypes. He died before they were finished. He never got to see them work. I'm sorry, Kyle said. Amy shook her head. Don't be. He knew what he was doing was important. We all did. Every person who worked on this project, every engineer and scientist and soldier, we all knew that one day we might have to use these weapons. We hoped we wouldn't, but we were ready when the time came. She stood up, carrying her tray to the recycling station. Get some rest, Lieutenant. Something tells me the easy part is over. The Carthan homeworld of Carth Prime was a massive planet, 3 times the size of Earth. Its cities stretched for hundreds of kilometers, connected by transportation networks that had existed for thousands of years. In the center of the capital city stood the Imperial Tower, where the Empire's leaders made decisions that affected billions of lives. Today, those leaders sat in shocked silence. Admiral Zekthar slammed his fist on the table. He was old for a Carthan, his scales dulled to almost gray, but his eyes still burned with the fire of a warrior. 3,000 ships, 3,000 of our finest vessels destroyed in less than 1 minute. This is impossible. Counselor Thara, the Empire's chief strategist, remained calm. She had reviewed the recovered data 17 times. Each time she came to the same conclusion, and each time it terrified her more. It is not impossible, Admiral. It happened. The question is not whether we believe it. The question is what we do about it. We gather a larger fleet, Zekthar shouted. 10,000 ships, 20,000. We turn their pathetic little world into dust. And if they destroy that fleet too? Thara asked quietly. The room fell silent. Emperor Kazarin, who had been listening without speaking, leaned forward in his throne. He was young for an emperor, barely 60 cycles old. His predecessor had died in what was officially called an accident. Everyone knew it was assassination, but no one had proof. Counselor Thara, the Emperor said, you have studied the battle data. Explain to us how this happened. Thara stood and activated a holographic display. It showed the battle from multiple angles, reconstructed from sensor logs of the few ships that survived long enough to transmit data. The humans turned their entire solar system into a weapon, she began. What appeared to be asteroids were actually defense platforms. What seemed like debris was actually dormant military equipment. They had been preparing for this for decades. Cowards, Zekthar muttered, hiding behind automated defenses. Automated? Thara shook her head. Admiral, these weapons were not automated. They were too precise, too coordinated. Humans were controlling every shot. They did not just have better weapons, they had better tactics, better planning, better execution. She pulled up a comparison chart. I have analyzed their technology based on what we observed. Their railgun velocities exceed anything in our arsenal by 300%. Their energy weapons operate on principles we do not fully understand. Their targeting computers process information faster than our best systems. How is this possible? The Emperor asked. Our intelligence reports said they were primitive, still using chemical rockets. They were deceiving us, Thara said. Or more likely, we deceived ourselves. We saw what we wanted to see, a weak species that would be easy to conquer. We did not look deeper. She changed the display to show Earth's recent history. For the past 43 years, humanity has been united under a single government. Every resource, every scientist, every factory has been focused on one goal: defense. They knew we were coming. They watched us conquer their neighbors. And they prepared. Zekthar stood up angrily. Then we will prepare better. We will send scouts. We will study their defenses. We will find their weaknesses and exploit them. And what if they have no weaknesses? Thara asked. What if they are simply better than us? The Admiral's face darkened. You speak treason, Counselor. I speak truth, Thara replied calmly. The Carthan Empire has ruled for 5,000 years. We have conquered hundreds of worlds, but we have grown complacent. We have stopped innovating. Why improve our weapons when they already defeat everyone we fight? Why advance our technology when no one can challenge us? She pointed at the image of Earth. But humans are different. They have spent their entire history fighting each other. War has driven their advancement. Competition has made them innovative. While we rested on our achievements, they were perfecting the art of killing. Emperor Kazran stood slowly. Every eye in the room turned to him. Admiral Zekthar, assemble a new fleet, 10,000 ships, our best vessels, our most experienced commanders. But do not attack immediately. Send scouts first. Learn everything you can about their defenses. Find their weaknesses. When you attack, I want overwhelming force. I want absolute certainty of victory. Zekthar bowed deeply. It will be done, my Emperor. And Counselor Thara, the Emperor continued, you will work with our intelligence division. I want to know everything about these humans. Their history, their culture, their technology. Find me a way to defeat them. Thara bowed as well, but her expression remained troubled. She had a terrible feeling that defeating humanity would not be as simple as gathering more ships. On Earth, President Kate Sullivan met with her military advisors in a secure bunker beneath the Capitol. General Peter Larson commanded Earth's ground forces. Admiral Christine Hayes led the space fleet. Director Ryan Mitchell ran Earth's intelligence agency. The Carthans will come back, Kate said without preamble. When they do, they will not make the same mistakes. We need to be ready. Our defense grid can handle a larger force, Admiral Hayes said. We have enough ammunition and power reserves to fight off 20,000 ships if necessary. And if they send 30,000? Kate asked. 50,000. They have 400 star systems to draw from. We have one. Eventually, the numbers will overwhelm us. Ryan Mitchell pulled up a holographic map. Our intelligence says the Carthan Empire is mobilizing. They are calling up reserve fleets from across their territory. The largest military buildup in their history. They are preparing something big. How long do we have? Kate asked. 3 months, maybe 4. Kate nodded slowly. She had been expecting this. Then we cannot wait for them to come to us. General Larson, status of Project Exodus? The general brought up another display. We have successfully evacuated all non-essential personnel from Mars and the outer colonies. The stations are rigged for remote operation. If the Carthans come, we can make them fight for every meter of space, but we will not risk civilian casualties. Good. Admiral Hayes, status of the stealth fleet? Christine Hayes smiled slightly. The Shadow Wing is operational. 15 stealth carriers, each equipped with advanced cloaking technology. The Carthans have never seen anything like them. And Project Mercury? Kate asked quietly. Everyone in the room fell silent. Project Mercury was the ultimate weapon, the final option if everything else failed. It was also completely insane. Ryan Mitchell spoke carefully. Dr. Chen reports that the conversion is 97% complete. If activated, the explosion will be visible from 3 light-years away. Kate closed her eyes briefly. I pray we never have to use it, but if the Carthans threaten Earth directly, we will do whatever is necessary. She looked at each of her advisors in turn. We won the first battle because they underestimated us. We will win the second battle by being smarter, faster, and more ruthless than they expect. The Carthans came here to conquer us. We are going to teach them why that was a mistake. Back on Sentinel-7, Kyle Morrison was running simulations. He had been at it for 12 hours straight, testing different scenarios. What if the Carthans attacked from multiple directions? What if they used kamikaze tactics? What if they brought weapons humanity had not anticipated? Captain Rodriguez found him asleep at his console, his head resting on his arms. She smiled and draped a blanket over his shoulders. The young officer was dedicated. She would give him that. She looked out the window at Earth below. Somewhere down there, her daughter was sleeping. 7 years old and completely unaware of how close they had come to extinction. Kate wanted to keep it that way. She wanted her daughter to grow up in a world where alien invasions were just stories, not reality. But Amy had been a soldier too long to believe in fairy tales. The Carthans would come again, and next time humanity's tricks might not be enough. They needed something more. They needed an advantage the enemy could not match. She pulled up the classified reports on her console. Project Mercury, Project Shadow Wing, Project Exodus. Humanity had been busy. They had plans within plans, weapons within weapons. The Carthans thought this was a war of conquest. They were wrong. This was a war of survival. And humanity had proven throughout history that there was nothing more dangerous than a species fighting for its very existence. Come back, Amy whispered to the stars. Please come back and try again. We have surprises waiting for you. 3 months had passed since the first battle. Admiral Zekthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, watching the human star system through his sensors. 10,000 warships waited behind him, spread across a formation that stretched for millions of kilometers. This time would be different. This time, they had sent scouts. Small, fast ships that mapped every defense platform, every weapon emplacement, every energy signature in the system. The scouts had taken casualties, but they had brought back valuable data. Commander Pektar, Zekthar called to his tactical officer, status report. Pektar studied his console carefully. Admiral, our sensors show minimal activity in the human system. The defense platforms are present but operating at low power. We detect no military vessels in orbit around their homeworld. Energy signatures are significantly reduced compared to our previous engagement. Zekthar felt suspicion crawl up his spine. They know we are here. They must know. Why are they not preparing? Perhaps they have exhausted their resources in the first battle, Pektar suggested. Our intelligence estimates that the energy expenditure required for their defensive fire would have drained their entire power grid. Or perhaps they want us to think that, Zekthar muttered. He had not survived 500 battles by being careless. Send the vanguard forward, 1,000 ships. Have them approach Mars. If it is a trap, better to lose 1,000 than 10,000. The vanguard fleet moved forward cautiously. They approached Mars slowly, scanning constantly for threats. The red planet hung in space, silent and seemingly abandoned. Scans show the human colonies are empty, the Vanguard commander reported. No life signs, no power signatures. They have evacuated. Zekthar considered this. Land troops. Search the facilities. Find out what they were doing there. Carthan landing craft descended to the Martian surface. Soldiers in environmental suits entered the human facilities, weapons ready. They found empty corridors, abandoned equipment, research stations with no one left to staff them. Admiral, the ground commander reported, these facilities are not just colonies. They are weapons factories, mass production on a scale we have never seen. And they are all empty. Where did the humans go? Zekthar wondered aloud. In deep space, far beyond the orbit of Pluto, Commander Kyle Morrison watched from the bridge of the ESS Shadow Wing. The stealth carrier was completely invisible to Carthan's sensors, cloaked by technology that bent light and radiation around the ship's hull. They took the bait, Captain Rodriguez said quietly. She stood beside Kyle, watching the holographic display that showed the Carthan fleet. They think we ran away. The evacuation was obvious enough, Kyle replied. We wanted them to see it. We wanted them to think we were scared. Around them, 14 more stealth carriers hung in space, invisible and waiting. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. Combined, they represented humanity's most advanced military technology. All ships report ready, the communications officer announced. Weapons charged. Targeting solutions locked. Captain Rodriguez took a deep breath. Commander Morrison, activate Project Mercury on my mark. On Mercury, the closest planet to the Sun, something had been built over the past 3 years. The entire planet had been hollowed out, its core replaced with a massive fusion device. Thousands of technicians had worked on the project, knowing it would be used only once, knowing that when it was used, it would be spectacular. Kyle's fingers hovered over the activation control. Project Mercury ready, Captain. Admiral Zekthar watched his fleet spread through the inner solar system. No resistance, no weapons fire, nothing but empty space and abandoned planets. He should have felt victorious. Instead, he felt nervous. Admiral, Pektar said suddenly, we are detecting a massive power surge from the first planet, the one closest to their sun. Mercury? Zekthar pulled up the data. What are they doing there? Unknown. But the energy readings are... Admiral, they are increasing exponentially. This is not normal. This is... The planet exploded. But it was not like a normal explosion. This was controlled, directed, focused. The entire mass of Mercury converted into fusion energy in a single instant, channeled through magnetic fields that aimed the blast like a weapon. A wall of plasma and radiation moving at near-light speed toward the Carthan fleet. Shields! Zekthar screamed. All power to shields! It did not matter. The wave hit the Carthan vanguard and simply erased it. 1,000 ships ceased to exist in seconds. The blast continued outward, weakening as it expanded but still powerful enough to overwhelm Carthan defensive systems. Zekthar's flagship rocked violently. Alarms screamed. Hull breaches were reported throughout the ship. Around them, hundreds of vessels were torn apart or crippled by the blast. Damage report, Zekthar demanded. 40% of the fleet destroyed or disabled, Pektar reported, his voice shaking. Communications are disrupted. Formation is scattered. Admiral, we need to retreat. No, Zekthar refused. We still outnumber them. Reform the fleet. Find their ships and destroy them. Admiral, the censor officer said quietly, I think we already found their ships. On the display, 15 red dots appeared. They had not been there a moment ago. They simply materialized out of nowhere, already in firing position. The ESS Shadow Wing and her sister ships dropped their cloaking fields simultaneously. Kyle Morrison felt a grim satisfaction as he saw the Carthan fleet's sensor screens light up with warning indicators. All ships, Captain Rodriguez broadcast, fire at will. The stealth carriers unleashed everything they had. Railguns, particle beams, missile swarms, quantum torpedoes that phased through shields before detonating inside Carthan hulls. Each carrier had the firepower of 20 conventional warships, and they used every bit of it. The Carthan fleet tried to respond, but they were scattered and disorganized. The Mercury blast had broken their formation and damaged their communications. Individual ships fought back, but there was no coordination, no unified defense. Zekthar watched his fleet die around him. In less than 5 minutes, humanity had destroyed half his force. The other half was retreating in disorder, trying to escape the killing field. All ships, he ordered. Full retreat. Jump to hyperspace as soon as you are clear. Admiral, we cannot abandon. We are already defeated, Zekthar roared. Save what ships we can. The Eternal Conquest turned and accelerated away from Earth. Around it, the surviving Carthan vessels followed. Behind them, the human stealth carriers did not pursue. They had made their point. Kyle Morrison watched the Carthan fleet flee on his sensors. He should have felt satisfaction. Instead, he felt tired. So many deaths, so much destruction, and it was not over yet. Captain, he said quietly, there is one ship falling behind the others, the flagship. Captain Rodriguez studied the display. Admiral Zekthar's vessel was damaged, its engines operating at reduced power. It would make it to jump distance eventually, but not as quickly as the others. Let it go, Amy decided, but make sure it carries a message. She opened a communication channel. On the Carthan flagship, a holographic image appeared in front of Admiral Zekthar. President Kate Sullivan stood with her hands clasped behind her back, looking directly at him. Admiral Zekthar, she said calmly, you came to punish us for defending ourselves. You failed. Your fleet is destroyed. Your soldiers are dead. I am allowing you to live for one reason, so you can deliver a message to your empire. She leaned forward slightly. You came to conquer Earth. You were annihilated instantly. Twice. If you value your empire, you will never return to our system. But know this. We now have your star charts. We know where you live. We know where your shipyards are. We know where your colonies are. We know where your homeworld is. Kate's expression was cold and hard. Stay away from us, or we will show you what humanity does to those who threaten our extinction. We did not start this war, but we will finish it if you make us. The transmission ended. Admiral Zekthar sat in his command chair, staring at the empty space where the human president's image had been. Around him, his bridge crew worked in silence. They had lost. Completely. Utterly. And somehow he suspected that humanity had still been holding back. Set course for Carth Prime, he ordered quietly. The Emperor needs to know what we are facing. As the Carthan flagship limped away, the human stealth fleet regrouped. Captain Rodriguez looked at Kyle Morrison and saw the young officer's expression. It bothers you, she said. Killing them. Shouldn't it? Kyle asked. They were living beings. They had families. They were following orders. They came here to enslave us, Amy reminded him gently. And yes, they were following orders, but we all make choices. They chose to serve an empire built on conquest. We chose to defend our freedom. History will judge which choice was right." She looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Carthan Empire was receiving the news of their second defeat. How they responded would determine everything. The Imperial Tower on Karth Prime had never been so quiet. Emperor Kazran sat on his throne, watching the holographic recording for the third time. Admiral Zekthar's broken voice described the destruction of 10,000 ships. The recording showed President Kate Sullivan's ultimatum. The message was clear. Humanity was done being defensive. "How many ships do we have left?" the Emperor asked quietly. Admiral Tekvar, who had replaced Zekthar as Supreme Commander, checked his data. 8,000 in reserve fleets across the Empire, another 12,000 in various stages of construction. "But my Emperor, even 20,000 ships may not be enough. The humans destroyed 13,000 vessels in 2 battles. Counselor Thara stood and walked to the center of the chamber. "My Emperor, I must speak plainly. We are facing something unprecedented. The humans are not like other species we have conquered. They do not surrender. They do not negotiate. They prepare, and they strike with overwhelming force." "Are you suggesting we surrender to them?" Emperor Kazran asked coldly. "I am suggesting we make peace before we have no empire left to defend," Thara replied. "Every ship we send to their system is destroyed. Meanwhile, we have confirmed reports of human stealth vessels in our territory. They have been mapping our empire for months. They know our weaknesses. They know our strengths. They are studying us the way we should have studied them." The Emperor stood abruptly. "The Carthan Empire does not surrender. We have ruled for 5,000 years. We will not bow to a single planet of primitives." "Then we will fall," Thara said simply. "I have analyzed human technology and human tactics. They are advancing faster than we can respond. Every month we delay gives them time to develop new weapons, new strategies. If we fight them now, we lose slowly. If we fight them a year from now, we lose quickly." The chamber erupted in argument. Some counselors demanded total war. Others suggested retreat, abandoning the sector of space where Earth was located. A few agreed with Thara that peace was the only option. Emperor Kazaren raised his hand for silence. He looked at Thara directly. "You believe we should negotiate?" "I believe we should survive," Thara said. "Pride is meaningless if the Empire ceases to exist." The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Prepare a diplomatic vessel. Send an envoy to Earth. Offer them a treaty. Recognition of their sovereignty over their entire star system. A promise to never enter their space again. And most importantly, peace." "My Emperor," Admiral Tekvar protested, "this is humiliation." "This is survival," the Emperor replied. "Better to be humiliated and alive than proud and extinct." 2 weeks later, a single Carthan vessel approached Earth. It broadcast diplomatic codes and moved slowly, showing no aggression. Kyle Morrison watched it from Sentinel-7 with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "A diplomatic ship," Captain Rodriguez observed. "They are actually asking for peace." "Do we trust them?" Kyle asked. "We verify everything they say," Amy replied. "But we listen. That is more than they gave us." The Carthan envoy, Ambassador Vectress, met with President Kate Sullivan in a neutral space station that humans had constructed specifically for this meeting. The station was heavily defended, but designed to look peaceful. It sent a message. Humanity could build for war or for peace. The choice belonged to others. Vectress was older than most Carthans, his scales almost white with age. He bowed deeply to the human president. "President Sullivan, I bring greetings from Emperor Kazran and the Imperial Council. We wish to discuss peace." Kate gestured for him to sit. The furniture had been designed to accommodate Carthan physiology. Small details, but important ones. They showed respect without showing weakness. "Ambassador Vectress," Kate said, "your empire sent 13,000 ships to conquer my world. Forgive me if I am skeptical about your peaceful intentions." "You have every right to be skeptical," Vectress admitted. "My empire made a terrible mistake. We assumed you were weak because your technology appeared primitive. We assumed you would surrender because resistance seemed futile. We were wrong on both counts." He pulled up a holographic document. "The Emperor offers this treaty, full recognition of Earth's sovereignty over your solar system, a formal border that Carthan vessels will not cross without permission, an exchange of ambassadors, and most importantly, peace." Kate studied the document carefully. Her advisors had already reviewed it, but she read every word herself. "What does the Empire receive in return?" "Survival," Vectress said bluntly. "President Sullivan, let me be honest with you. Your stealth ships have been in our territory for months. We know you have our star charts. We know you have mapped our defenses. If you wished to attack us, you could cripple our shipyards and military bases before we knew you were there. We are offering peace because war with humanity is suicide." Kate appreciated the honesty. She had spent 3 months wondering when the Carthans would come back for a third attempt. This was not what she had expected, but it was better than more bloodshed. "I will present this treaty to the United Earth Assembly," she said. "But, Ambassador, understand something clearly. If your empire breaks this treaty, if even one Carthan warship enters our system without permission, we will consider it an act of war, and we will respond with everything we have." "Understood completely," Vectress replied. "The Emperor knows that another conflict with Earth would be the end of the Empire." The treaty was approved by both sides within a month. The Carthan Empire officially recognized Earth as an independent power with full sovereignty. A border was established, monitored by sensors from both sides. Ambassadors were exchanged. Trade agreements were discussed but proceeded slowly. Trust would take time to build. 6 months after the treaty was signed, Captain Amy Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the ESS Horizon, humanity's first deep space exploration vessel. It was not a warship, though it carried enough weapons to defend itself. It was designed for a different purpose, to explore the galaxy beyond Earth's solar system. Kyle Morrison stood beside her as the ship's executive officer. He had been promoted twice since the war ended, his talents recognized and rewarded. Now he was helping to lead humanity's expansion into the cosmos. "Course plotted for Alpha Centauri," the navigation officer reported. "Ready to jump on your command, Captain." Amy looked at Kyle and smiled. "What are you thinking?" "I am thinking about how far we have come," Kyle said. "A year ago, we were fighting for survival. Now we are exploring the galaxy." "The galaxy is bigger than we imagined," Amy said. "The Carthans control 400 systems, but there are millions of stars out there. Billions of planets. Some of them have life, some of them have civilizations, and now we get to meet them as explorers, not conquerors." She turned to the navigation officer. "Take us out. Let's see what is out there." The ESS Horizon jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving Earth's solar system behind. Behind them, Earth continued to grow and change. New defensive platforms were built. Not because war was expected, but because preparation had saved them once. It would save them again if needed. On Earth, Dr. Lisa Chen returned to civilian research. She had spent 20 years building weapons. Now she spent her time designing better spacecraft engines, more efficient power systems, technologies that could improve lives instead of ending them. It felt good. President Kate Sullivan addressed the United Earth Assembly on the 1-year anniversary of the first battle. "We were tested by an empire that believed we were weak. We proved them wrong. We were tested by war and we survived. We were tested by victory and we chose mercy over vengeance. Now we are tested by peace, and we will prove that humanity can build as well as it can fight. In space, More ships launched. Colony vessels heading for nearby stars. Science vessels exploring nebulas and strange phenomena. Trade ships establishing economic relationships with species that the Carthans had once oppressed. Humanity was expanding, but carefully, always watching, always ready. On Carth Prime, Emperor Kazran watched reports of human expansion with a mixture of respect and fear. They had been right to make peace. Every report showed human technology advancing. Every analysis showed human capabilities increasing. The Empire had survived by knowing when to fight and when to negotiate. This time they had chosen negotiation. It might have saved them from destruction. Counselor Thara met with the Emperor privately. The humans have established their first colony outside their solar system, on a planet they are calling New Terra. They are expanding faster than we predicted. Will they threaten us? The Emperor asked. Not unless we threaten them first, Thara replied. Everything we have learned suggests that humans are not conquerors by nature. They fight when threatened. They defend what is theirs, but they do not seek to dominate others. Then we have gained a powerful neighbor instead of a deadly enemy, the Emperor said. That is acceptable. On Sentinel-7, Kyle Morrison looked down at Earth one last time before departing for his new assignment. Captain Rodriguez had been promoted to Admiral, tasked with building Earth's deep space fleet. Kyle was going with her as her chief of staff. Ready to go? Amy asked, standing beside him. Ready? Kyle confirmed. Do you think we will ever fight another war? Amy considered the question carefully. I think humanity has learned something important. We learned that we are stronger united than divided. We learned that preparation prevents disaster. We learned that we can defend ourselves against anything. But most importantly, we learned that we do not have to be victims. We can shape our own destiny. She smiled. The Carthans came here to conquer us. They thought we were prey. They learned we are predators. But the best part? We chose not to be monsters. We could have destroyed their empire. We had the power. We had the justification. But we chose peace instead. That is what makes us better than them. They boarded the shuttle that would take them to the Fleet Command Station. As they lifted off from Sentinel-7, Kyle looked back at the station one last time. It had been built as humanity's first line of defense. Now it was a monument, a reminder of what happened when someone tried to conquer Earth. The Carthan Empire had sent their fleet to invade Earth. They were annihilated instantly, twice. They would never forget, and neither would humanity. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Humans could be friends or enemies, allies or adversaries, but they would never, ever be victims again. Far out in deep space, human exploration continued. The stars waited, full of mysteries and possibilities, and humanity, united and strong, reached out to embrace them all.